Do you find it easy to ask for help, Bongani?
I struggle.
Why?
I struggle because it's probably, you're good.
Thank
This
you.
is-
I'll back that.
This is probably my toughest challenge at the moment. I have spent my life being the one upon whom people depended, and it was a badge of honor. I'm the fixer, I'm the rescuer, I'm the one who comes up with the plan, I'm the one who says, let's get going. Black swan events are those things you didn't see coming. I think for me, the biggest challenge is when you are thinking on your feet, when you are trying to bring to bear all your experience, all your knowledge, all your training, the mentors who taught you, and it all has to come to a head in a single moment.
Bongani, I know you said you're nervous. Do you know how nervous I am that I'm sitting on the other side of you right now? I'm
Fear
so
not.
delighted to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be invited.
Yeah. So, first, I'm curious, what made you say yes to talking about failure, and what is failure to you?
Failure to me is, it shows up in many ways.
Mhm.
It's giving up. Failure is a betrayal of self. Failure is when you no longer believe in possibility.
Sure. Yeah. And have you had instances that the possibilities have been challenging to believe in, especially as you were starting up in your career?
Look, I think failure and falling are not the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can fall down, we can get beaten up, we can experience detours in our journey. Those are all part of the experience. Those are all part of the things that when you get to a summit, you look back and you go, wow, I went through that. And those are the things that propel you to, those are the things that teach you how to do hard things, right? But failure is when you have closed the door. I think there have been times I've wanted to. There have been times when it seemed that there wasn't a way out. But when you are clear in your head about the difference between falling and failing, you learn to get up.
I love the difference between falling and failing. And your style, and I'm going to say your area of specialization in journalism is, I mean, it's not like a skip and a hop in the morning because of the intensity of the stories you are curious about, you uncover, and you tell South Africans or the world about.
So my job is, it's so much fun.
Is it?
It's so much fun
in all of that?
because yes, of course, we want to tell you about the serious things that are going on in the world.
Yeah.
And we want our audience to be informed. We want our audience to feel smarter for having listened to us. We want our audience to be the ones at the cooler box or at a dinner table to say, did you know this? You know, the other day I heard. But probably the most exciting thing is that I want a sense of connection.
Mm-hmm.
We want our audience to feel that even though there's a lot going on in the world, some of it challenging, some of it scary, but that there are people just like them trying to get through the day, trying to get their kids, trying to raise their kids, trying to raise their families, trying to make their decisions about a future, deciding where to invest, what to invest in, trying to be entertained, trying to be part of the discourse, trying to be part of building this country.
Yeah.
And that you could be from Soweto or Sandton, but that you are listening to people just like you going through the same things.
Mm-hmm. Is there a time that you had a failure or a falling, as you describe, that felt so devastating at the time, and retrospectively, it's taught you the most?
Oh gosh, so quickly.
Let's go there.
I think career-wise, my journey has been a set of steady steps. I can't look back on any particular moment that I think would be adequately described as either a failure or a falling. I think the real challenges are the personal. It's the losses that you can't recover from. It's the losses that no one can spare you from. It's the losses that no one can encourage you enough out of. I'm a bereaved parent. I lost a son who was 22 months old.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's something that never leaves you. But that is a falling. That is not a failure. I live my life to the fullest extent I can because I always think that's what he would want me to do. I live my life knowing, give it your best shot. Hit me with the best that you have. You can't do worse to me than that.
And what puts a smile on your face when you think about your choice to live life like that? Because I can imagine to other people, there may be this Bongani who is maybe misunderstood by the choices that he makes and the eternal pouring of joy that you say you have.
Sorry, what's the question?
The question is, when you are misunderstood, but you've made a personal choice that you will live the life in the way that you've described, how do you navigate that so that that smile on your face is what you own, regardless of judgment?
I think one of the hardest things in this world is to try to be understood. You know, I'm just who I am. If somebody understands me, that's great.
That's a gift.
If they misunderstand me, that's none of my business.
Yeah.
I've just got to be who I am to the best of my ability.
Yeah, I love that. How do you guide somebody who's struggling with the need to be understood? Because socially,
it's such a pressure.
It is. I know. So let's guide a person who's listening to this.
Why do I want to be understood?
I don't know.
I'd like to be appreciated, perhaps respected, understood. I can barely understand myself most of the time.
So you say,
yeah, I think we live in a society. I mean, you often will hear an artist, say a musician, say, you know, this album is about where I am in life and my thinking, and I'm trying to put myself out there. And I always think, what an incredible responsibility to give your life over to others. I don't think we should be doing that. I think our job is to understand ourselves, perhaps those in our inner circle, those in our intimate circle. But not everyone is going to understand where you are coming from. And at best, accept my bona fides. Beyond that, that's your problem.
Let's talk about the pressure of telling tough stories and covering tough stories. I remember watching you talking, or you had stopped. I think you were traveling or driving somewhere in Pretoria or wherever, and the water mafia scenario was. Do you remember that? Do you remember that moment? I remember just thinking, oh my God, the guts it must take for and I mean, we talk about how all of us as citizens in this country should be bothered by the wrong we see, should speak up when we see wrongs being done. And I think there's a lot of fear inherent, and there's a lot of maybe risk that some of us are fearful of being exposed to. What goes into a moment like that when you are confronting the wrong you see in your daily life?
So the moment you're referring to was, I was driving on an ordinary suburban road. I saw a truck, and they were quite literally dumping liters of water. And as you know, often these trucks are contracted to deliver as many liters of water per day as possible. I don't think there's always an audit of where the water was delivered, when it was delivered, to whom it was delivered, as long as they just keep picking up these deliveries. Yeah. And so I just stopped my car, got out, confronted the guy, asked him what he was doing, recorded it, and I put it on my social media. When Russia first invaded Ukraine, I went there with carte blanche. I have been, when the Kenya bombings happened in, was it 2013 or 2014? It just feels so long ago now. I've covered difficult stories. I've covered stories where we had protection. with us, doing gangs. I've been to areas where it wasn't encouraged for journalists to go. And so the idea of a lone tanker dumping
Was
liters of
just like
water.
a chocolate for the morning.
No. And I think sometimes we've got to illustrate these things and not just talk about them. When people see what you are talking about, my mind works visually. I've worked in television for a very long time. And so it's always so much better to be able to say to somebody, there it is, versus I saw, I heard. But when the evidence is there, I think it helps.
And emotionally, like, how did that moment feel for you? Because I think there were people even across the road. So I mean, there's no protection.
So I confronted,
there's just Bongani driving, and
so I confronted the guy, and there were chaps who really had no dog in the fight. They were just sort of sitting on the side of the road, and they thought, yeah, papalo, and they were encouraging this guy to grab the phone
to you,
and to and for me that was almost in a sense more heartbreaking. This was a contractor who was probably under pressure. He didn't appear to own the vehicle. He was just possibly doing what he'd been told to. But the bystanders who were watching this and were watching somebody calling it out and had a problem with him versus the wrongdoer, I think that was more heartbreaking for me.
What do you think goes into the kind of people that are citizens who want to do right and want to report wrong? What do you think it takes for individuals to be those citizens in as far as you've interacted with some of them through your job?
Look, I think we've got to be careful. I think that for a middle-class South African like myself, I want the society to function. I want it to work because it's given me so much. I think there are a lot of people who don't feel that they have a buy-in into this society. It hasn't delivered for them. It hasn't delivered for their children. It hasn't delivered for their families. Many people live in incredibly desperate conditions. And so you hustle, you do what you can, but you're also resentful towards a system that has left you behind, that has forgotten you. And so I think it's too easy for us from the comfort of our air-conditioned cars or homes with our solar panels and backup power to judge when in fact we don't think necessarily about what would it take for me to be in that situation? What would it take for me to not care about making the society work for everyone in it? If it's not giving you, why would you want to support it?
And I think for me, even in outside of society, in the corporate context, there is a lot, some of us who want to be advocates of correcting the wrong. And then there is on the other side, what did it cost me? What is the cost of being that person who puts their hand up, who raises or rings the alarm and point to something going wrong there and needing everybody's attention because it's affecting the system around. So I think I'm curious about just this idea of having the confidence and at least the consciousness to attempt at least to participate in the correction.
I once saw a cartoon and it was, a typical market anywhere on the continent really, where a crowd is gathering and they're chasing after a guy who's stolen a loaf of bread. And in another frame, the big man with the big car is driving by and the crowd parts and they're singing and they're ululating because the big man is passing by. And the irony, of course, is that the big man likely steals a lot more from that same crowd than that guy who stole the loaf of bread. And I think that's what I mean. I think it is it's far easier to wag a finger at the little guy when people look around the society and they say from the very top, there are things that go wrong. And the impact of what is done by those with power and influence is so much more damaging than the little guys
Yeah.
that we so easily want to point a finger
Mm.
towards. So I think
Mm.
my sense is that let's get the society working for everyone.
Mm.
And I'm far more interested in holding uh, the most powerful accountable, because it is they who damage the society the most.
Okay, let's talk about the time where you are having to choose to go left or go right. Um, whose guidance do you seek? And what is, especially if not all the facts are on the table, how do you find the bits of data that is there so that you can decide if you're going left or going right in your stories, in your job, in your personal life? Um, what is that process for you like?
I'd like to think on my radio program, I've grown beyond the gotcha moment, because, again, the people in their cars, sitting in their kitchens, thinking about their marriages, thinking about their careers, thinking about their investments, thinking about their children, they want information. So when a minister, when a CEO, when somebody who is in the news has agreed to come on to provide that information, I want my listener to feel empowered, to feel informed, to think differently, to feel inspired, whatever the reason for the interview may be. And so I approach interviews with a quest to inquire, to get information, help me understand. I don't assume that I've got it and therefore I'm about to show the world how much smarter I am in this moment than the person I'm interviewing. I think perhaps in the beginning of my career that was sort of the thinking and the style, but really more than anything, I want you as the listener to walk away from that and go, gosh, I didn't know that, or that made me think differently, or to be engaged with the information that you hear.
Is there ever a time where you feel you didn't have all the information to ask some of the questions?
I think you never do. I'm a generalist. I will speak to a technical expert on their subject matter that they might have a PhD in. And I've got to make it digestible and accessible for the audience.
Yeah.
But my engagement with the person has to be at their level. So of course I almost every interview, you know more than I do.
I want to understand how you get ready if there is a breaking story and you can't have a sense of readiness. And I'm asking this because obviously with the podcast, we have a lot of business leaders, we have a lot of people in different careers. And I'm kind of bringing angles to our conversation
Yeah.
that at a principle level, there's something about, for example, in my career, I might not be ready to ask or to face this audience in the boardroom. Let me lean into how Bongani handles the story breaks. I have to talk about it.
Sure.
My team might not even be ready, but here's how I'm going to forge along and give the audience what they need to know.
I think there's a thing to be said for experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a thing to be said for a safe pair of hands. What's that classic definition of luck? Preparedness meets opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I think in South Africa, especially in the time of podcasts and everybody with a microphone and a studio light being a broadcaster having something to say, that we can very easily be obsessed with the now and the I've been in this game for a very long time, and there are very few stories for which I would not be prepared if news broke. That doesn't mean I know everything, but I have enough at my fingertips within my grasp to be able to see where it might go. And part of where I am lucky is that principally I'm there to ask the stupid questions. I'm there to ask smart people the questions that the layperson wants to know. And so I don't always feel under pressure to know everything, but hopefully I've been around enough to know what it is people want to hear.
I love the fact that you talk about asking stupid questions. because oftentimes I talk to um, leaders or people who are working to extend and expand and grow in their careers. And what holds them back is, I don't want to appear like I don't know enough.
Barack Obama said one thing that I found fascinating. He said that what surprised him was how often he would walk into rooms that had once been foreboding, and for him to realize that often he was dealing with people who were at times mediocre, who were at times searching for answers in the same way that he was, who didn't necessarily know as much as he thought that they did. And I think sometimes we undersell ourselves because we feel lucky to be in the room. We feel lucky to have been let through the door. But at a certain level of the game, everybody's just, we're on the same page.
Have you ever sat across a powerful person and wondered or had a sense of softening a question you might ask because of the power this person holds? And tell us, whether you have or not in the answer, what went on in your mind to get the confidence or to pull back and soften the questions you're asking in that moment.
Power is alluring. You've walked in rooms, you've met people whose decisions possibly have consequence beyond even their term of office. When I first met President Ramaphosa to interview him, he said to me, "Oh, so you're the Bongani that talks too much."
Oh my God.
What do you say after that, right?
I would be like, oops, okay.
But I think you try to, what makes marriages fail? The number one reason is when the couple loses their capacity for surprise. I think my trick has always been, I have to have something that will surprise you. I have to catch you off guard in some way. And that doesn't mean, again, that gotcha thing, no, but it's interviewing President Thabo Mbeki and sharing an anecdote about Madiba that he did not know because I'd interviewed Madiba's biographer who told me something. And you see the light go up in their eyes, and you've brought something they didn't know. And then that disarms them, that makes them feel comfortable, and you relax and get on with your job.
Has there ever been a question you got in trouble for asking? Back in your employer's office, where you got a phone call and they're like, we see this in the movies, where the 10th floor phones and it says, I don't know how many floors are in most of the buildings where you've worked. But when somebody says, you asked that question, you went there, you took things there, and there's worry, come, let's talk in the office.
We live in a time, okay, maybe I'm going to get a call after this. We live at a time where I can't remember when the world was so polarized around issues of social justice. And I know that corporates have walked away from my show, and sometimes even the station, because of principled positions I and my colleagues have taken. I know that at times it's come down to that. I know that there are people who won't sponsor certain things because you are saying things they don't want to hear. And in a commercial environment, it's a tricky thing to get through. I have refused work with people whose positions around social justice issues I'm at variance with. And so we live in a time where there's consequence for the positions we take. And sometimes these are hills we are ready to die on.
What gives you a sense of peace when such decisions are made around your show and what you are so clear is your belief system.
It's Martin Luther King. The arc of history bends towards justice. Might is not always right, or it can be for a time. But the arc of history bends towards justice. It's knowing that in the long run, the things we stand for are for the good of humanity, are for the good of all of us. I think when one takes positions for the good of some, history is not on your side.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there ever a moment where Bongani is like exhausted by it all? When you
Yes.
get home and you're like, I couldn't even
Yes.
be bothered to.
Yes.
I love saying brush my teeth this morning because we all try, at least get up and brush your teeth. And what is that moment like? And what does it take to be like, I can't.
At the dinner table, I don't want to talk about what's going on in the world. I want to talk about the day. I want to talk about sport. I want to talk about a book I'm reading. I want to talk about Arsenal.
Is that the team support?
I want to talk about Pirates. And I think at times people think you're on all the time. You're the person, and in my social circles, I love talking about frivolous stuff and just having fun and having a good laugh because I'm not always on. I'm not my work. I enjoy the work that I do, but I'm not it.
Yeah. And how do you ground yourself? What's in your toolbox? What are the three things you do? I mean, some of us, I love saying, for me, it's a glass of whiskey or a glass of wine when I get home. It's walking, it's journaling, meditation. What is it that psychologically like clears your mind and gives you capacity to take on more?
Time with my kids.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I love playing games. We play board games, we play card games, and the conversations that have come out of that. I love traveling. I love seeing places I haven't been to before. Yes, of course, that glass of wine at the end of the day on a Friday. I'm doing 100-day alcohol-free start to the year. So
that's nice, yeah.
I've got 80 more to go.
Sending you
it will be worth it
from the other side. And how are you preparing your kids to be failure ready?
I think one of the most challenging things as a parent is watching your kids fall. But we've got the scars because we fell. I think it's the hardest thing as a parent. Your instinct is to reach out. Your instinct is to... But hopefully what you should do is build a sense of resilience and to build a sense of still being a space they can come to when life beats them around, but to help them understand that they will fall. My father was a big hotshot lawyer. He was a big fish in a very small pond. And he made decisions that wrecked his life. And he lost everything. But he was the biggest teacher because he never changed. My father was the jovial, could walk with princes and paupers. And even when he was now a pauper and no longer the prince, he never changed. And he was somebody who could reinvent himself, who tried again and again and again. But the essence of who he was never defined by what he had, by what position he occupied, by what society surrounded him. And so sometimes the biggest lesson that we can teach our kids is to let them see our scars and when we have fallen. And the deal in my family is no lies, only the truth.
Mm.
And sometimes you have to ask, and sometimes you have to answer the tough questions with the truth.
Yeah, yeah. I say to my kids, tell the truth, you get into a tiny bit of trouble. Tell the lies, you get into a whole lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And I think the hardest thing to do is to kind of deal with that. I'm so afraid, Mom. I know I did wrong. And I'm so afraid.
And I think the thing about parenting, one of my biggest lessons is don't be perfect.
Yeah.
I think part of why our kids and young people find it so difficult to reach out to those who have gone before. And these are lessons that you can also see people need to understand even in the professional environment, where as a leader, you need to be perfect. You need to have all the answers. You need to get it right. I like being the one who apologizes the most frequently on my team. I like to be the one who admits my wrongs most often on my team. I like to be the one who says, I assumed certain things. Ooh, I don't think that our research was where it should have been on that. And when you create that culture where the people around you see you learning and growing and improving, why would they not want to do the same? If you admit your faults as a leader, why would people not do the same?
What's your take on vulnerability? I'm asking deliberately, launching off what you've just said, because in some spaces, people think vulnerability is a weak trait or it is a feminine trait. What's your take on vulnerability?
Firstly, so what if it's a feminine trait? I think there are things that offend me. One of them is the idea that if something is feminine, it is to be frowned upon, if it is seen as feminine.
It cues weakness.
Right? But more specifically, you can't be vulnerable if you're inauthentic. You can't be authentic if you're not vulnerable. And I think when you engender and cultivate a culture of honesty, you seek authenticity, you seek vulnerability. But if you don't expect people to show up as themselves, as their full selves, when you expect them to lie about who they are because they must put up a front, what else are they withholding from you? How are you able to make decisions with people you don't trust enough to let be themselves? How do you expect people to give you information when they know you don't trust who they fully are?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find it easy to ask for help, Bongani?
I struggle.
Why?
I struggle because and it's probably you're good.
Oh, thank you. I'll back that.
This is probably my toughest challenge at the moment. I have spent my life being the one upon whom people depended. And it was a badge of honor. I'm the fixer. I'm the rescuer. I'm the one who comes up with the plan. I'm the one who says, let's get going. My mother said to me once, she said, when I go, I'm going to ask people to look in on you 6 months afterwards.
Sure.
Because in the moment, I know you will spring into action and do what needs to be done. You know, one of my favorite poems has that line that says, even in your moment of grief, when your very bones are seared, I care if you will do what needs to be done. You will get up and do what needs to be done to feed the kids in the morning. That's always been my life philosophy. If I don't do it, it won't be done. And so I find myself at that point in my life where increasingly I have to ask for help. And it's the most humbling thing. But I also am learning the arrogance of not asking for help.
Yeah. I think it's that knowing. I remember saying to a friend, she had taken everything upon herself. And I said, spiritually, even, you're assuming that you carry that power. And sometimes you don't. And you were designed not to carry that power. I appreciate the the almost the smile in people's faces when Nontokozo knocks and says, I need help. And I think being Bongani, when you make that phone call, there is a sense of, it feels good that Bongani phoned me and says, I need help.
Yeah.
And how did you respond to mom when she said that to you?
I thought it was true. I had no argument.
Mm.
I recently had a medical challenge, and I was in hospital for 8 days. And the penny dropped where it's a long, boring story, but essentially I had a billing query with the municipality, an incorrect meter, blah, blah, boring story. And I was making these phone calls from a hospital bed. And a friend of mine said, no, you can't do this. But, no. So I'm learning.
Yeah.
I'm learning to let it go.
Yeah.
I'm learning to ask for help. I'm learning to know that it doesn't all depend on me.
Yeah. Just imagine the gift you give others if you are needing support. Yeah. I think it's a gift. Would you consider yourself a perfectionist?
I'm a Virgo.
I get astrology. So you see what is wrong first, right?
And one of the things about being a perfectionist is how much someone said to me this morning, she was watching the team and she said, oh my gosh, it's always so amazing how much the people around you aim to please you. And I thought, whew. I wasn't sure if, and she said, no, I mean that in a really good way. And so I think I'm okay with being a perfectionist if it means that I am somebody who is seen as caring about the work that I do and the quality of the output. But also if it means that the people that are around me are challenged to bring the best of themselves. I think where perfectionism breaks people down, where it's constant criticism, where it's never seeing the good that people do, where you point out much more of the wrong more often than you ever do when people get it right. I think that's a problem.
Yeah. I had a conversation with the team, one of the teams I work with, and I said to the CEO, I said, I am so sorry for the number of times I am seeking a better product. Sometimes I don't even know what that thing is.
Yeah.
I will know it when it's in front of me.
Yeah.
But somehow for me, settling and feeling like, oh, this is a third attempt. Let me just take this campaign. Let me just take this idea. Let me just take that concept.
Yeah.
I just can't bring myself to that point because I feel like, one, I'm letting myself down. And two, there's a sense of celebration when I know we did it 7 times and at time number 7, we cracked it.
But also, though, think about what it feels like when a leader says, I don't know what it is. It's not working for me. And that version is the best you can come up with at that point. I'm okay with a leader who disagrees with what I've done, but show me. I need you to know what it is.
Yeah.
Because then we've got a standard, we've got a lodestar we're aiming for. But I think one of the toughest things is being led by somebody who says, it's just not working for me. I'm just not feeling it.
Sometimes I'm like, I don't know what word we need to use. I think we need better copy. I think we need, but in that exchange, I think for me is saying, I guess because creativity is art.
Sure.
Sometimes writing a song might take one attempt. You're Taylor Swift, you nail it. And sometimes you'll never know. You're Michael
Sure.
Jackson, you don't know. And adjustment number 6, the
Yeah.
song comes. And how do you show, or how do you cultivate patience with the process? Whatever the process is, how do you cultivate patience?
Knowing that at times we're in it for the long haul.
Mm,
You know, I think that it's easier the longer you lead, it should be easier to become patient. I think impatience is often a sign of a leader who is unsettled, a leader who has too much to prove. But I think once you settle into an understanding of the long game you are playing,
mm,
you can countenance mistakes.
mm,
You can deal with it not being perfect because you know the direction and where you are aiming to take your people.
mm, mm, mm.
And so when I find myself impatient, I think one of the questions then I must ask is, how settled am I in what I'm doing and the leadership I'm supposed to provide?
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about leadership, and I want to take you back to that thought of you guiding leaders in their industries through your practice, your process, and I'm going to say journalism code. Um, I want to get back to that sitting across power. There are a lot of people, and sometimes me as well, where if I need to bring about a difficult or an important conversation, if it pertains to something that is really, really like important to me, there's heightened emotions, and I want to ask you, how do I prepare for that? If you are maybe to give me 3 steps, thoughts, methods that I could take into the boardroom and be like, okay, I'm going to practice. I'm
Oh.
sitting across power. There's something that matters to me. Here are the tricks that Bongani said I should deploy.
I almost think those are the easier ones because those are the ones you prepare for.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones you obsess over. Those are the
Mm-hmm.
ones you agonize over. You have checked and triple checked and
Mm-hmm.
bounced off.
Yeah.
Those are, in some senses, the easy ones. I think the far more difficult ones are the crisis moments, are the black swan events, are those things you didn't see coming.
Yeah.
I think for me, the biggest challenge is when you are thinking on your feet,
Mm-hmm.
when you are trying to bring to bear all your experience, all your knowledge, all your training, the mentors who've taught you, and it all has to come to a head in a single moment, in a single answer that you didn't see coming. And if you're not centered, you'll struggle.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also when you own a sense of, but hang on, I belong in the room. I've got something to say. I've got a view. I've got a perspective. I have been prepared for such a moment as this. And those are the moments you celebrate much more than the ones you prepared for.
In that, I agree. I agree about crisis, but I also know that, for example, there are people whose disposition is to, one, stress out sometimes even about the smallest things.
Yeah.
Two, it might be a presentation to exco that is happening as a matter of routine every month, but the nerves can overwhelm me. And then three, sometimes the balance in the boardroom is just not there. It might be, yes, it's easier because it's not the Black Swan event. So, how do I center myself, and how do I walk into that meeting and say, like Bongani interviewed President Thabo Mbeki?
Yeah.
These are the 3 things he always made sure he has in his tool bag.
The CNN anchor Abby Phillips talks about how she spent most of her life buying into the script that it was always about hard work. It was always about being the best. It was always about go, 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 go.
Mm.
And she says that the thing that has surprised her is learning that ultimately it's also about relationship building. When you walk into, particularly in your own organization, you want to make sure you've built relationships with people.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make sure that you are presenting to people who accept your bona fides
Mm-hmm.
as a professional, but also as a person of principle and integrity and a person who delivers. And I think we don't get taught enough about how to build relationships,
Mm-hmm.
how to make sure that when you stand in front of people, in front of the tough crowd, there are people who have already got a buy-in before you've uttered a single word, because you've taken the time to build those relationships, to make sure that you've got advocates in the room. And similarly, as a leader, I think it's important to have people that you sponsor, that you cheer for.
Yeah.
If you don't build relationships in the corporate game, you're going to get left behind.
Mm-hmm. What's your take on corporate politics? One, how do you define it as Bongani? And how do you interact with corporate politics?
I'm happy to say that in my line of work, I'm probably not as exposed, to much of it. But I do think, to the degree that I'm a very firm believer in building relationships and finding areas of commonality. You know, I'm all about connection,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to read the room and who's in it and what will appeal to them, what will make them say, oh, he's just one of us. He's just like me. And I think we always want to be seen. We don't always want to show ourselves.
What goes into showing yourself?
Authenticity,
Yeah.
vulnerability, honesty. But it is also being that dependable, safe pair of hands. People will respect you if you are right most of the time.
Yeah.
You earn it.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there ever a time when failure has not been an option for you?
If I go back to my early definition of failure, when you give up, when you close the door,
Yeah.
do I have breath in me? Am I alive? Do I have my mind? It's never an option.
When have you made decisions to close doors, not because you are quitting, but because it's no longer serving you?
I think when an organization is no longer aligned to who you want to be in the long term, when you know that these are not decisions I will be prepared or I will be happy to defend 5-10 years from now, it's time to move on.
It's time to close the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not failure, though.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But not because you're failing.
Yeah.
But because that seeking to go through that door is no longer serving you.
Failure can sometimes be staying.
Yeah. Persisting.
Yeah. It could be even in personal relationships.
Persisting.
It could be in friendships. It could even be with family members. Sometimes failure is staying.
Do you forgive easily?
Sure. My therapy bills are going up with each question. Do I forgive easily? No.
Tell me
I
more.
don't.
You don't, yeah.
I don't. Oprah Winfrey says, forgiveness is that moment when you stop believing the past could have been any different. And I don't forgive easily because I often believe so much in people. it takes me a very long time to get to the moment where I realize the past had to be that way. I think for much of my life, I believe people have choices to make. And when people consistently make choices to harm and to hurt, I don't always find it easy to give them the get out of jail card that says it could have been different, or it couldn't have been any different. Because I think it often can.
Yeah. Last question. I wouldn't have done my job if I don't ask you to advise leaders who deal with black swan events and have to confront the media. What mistakes do you see them make when they get that call from your slot on air and they have to answer, explain, respond? Because I know sometimes there is just too many moving parts. Like you said, you are free to ask the stupid question.
Yeah.
They have to represent the shareholder, the client base, the executive team. So if you were to just say, these are the 3 mistakes I see these guys do every time they're dealing with a black swan event.
One of the things about a black swan event is that it describes something nobody saw coming, right? And whilst I might say I ask the stupid questions from smart people, I'm asking them on behalf of other smart people. The people who watch or listen, they themselves are not stupid. The public is not stupid. And I understand the pressures of, the legal team saying these are the parameters. You can't answer that. You can't, if you're exposing us to litigation there and risk and da. But I think the number one rule of communication is honesty. And admit where you can't go and face media scrutiny if you're not prepared to be honest. Because there's that moment where the interviewer is badgering someone who is being honest, who is trying to accept with humility what has gone wrong, where the sympathy of the viewer or the listener switches because they know what it's like to be there. People are turned off because they're so used to the spin and they know the language of spin. And whilst at times they may not know where the lie was, they can't spot it, but they can hear it and they know it's there.
So 1, be prepared to tell the truth.
And be prepared, if you can, within whatever constraints, legally or otherwise, control the narrative. Don't let other people define you and that moment and that story. And the only way you can do so is if you tell the truth, but also with humility. It may not be the story that people want to hear, but the truth is the truth. Because if I, as the interviewer, come with my prepared set of questions, please tell me, how did this happen under your watch? You admit that it happened. Where do we go from there?
Yeah. How do you deal with being told what questions not to ask? Being briefed by external parties that are going to interact with you.
Look, it depends. It depends on the scenario. If somebody is agreeing to come on so for example, at the start of just before the Madlanga Commission started, Justice Madlanga was retiring from the Constitutional Court. It's a great interview, right? But of course, in that context, I can't ask him about the commission that he's about to chair before it's even begun. So in that kind of context, there are moments where you have to respect your interviewee's parameters. But in the context of holding truth to power, you're not coming on my show if you are asking me what questions I can and cannot ask you. You came to the wrong show.
Mm.
You came to the wrong host.
Mm.
We will go there.
Yeah. And look at us. We went there. That's the end. That's the end of Cheers to Failure with Bongani Bingwa. We did it.
To getting up again
Yeah.
and again and again.
Yeah. Thank you so much for
Thank
giving me
you.
your time.
Thank you for having me.